What was your worst sleepover experience during your childhood? Friend's mother and her boyfriend were arguing in the kitchen after we went to bed. He started talking about how he would kill the kids if I have to. I was about 7 or 8 I guess, so it didn't really sink in that much at the time. But my friend wasn't really in a great mood for the rest of the time I was there. Went to a friend's birthday party in 4th grade. About halfway through the night we decided to play hide and seek. Maybe 30 or 45 minutes later. All I know was it was a long ass time. I come out of my hiding place to find them playing on the Wii in the living room. They'd forgotten about me and thought everyone was found, so they moved on to the next thing without me. This happened to me once. I was hiding between 2 parts of a sort of modular couch that they had in their basement. I had put a blanket and some pillows over the top of the crack between them so it looked flush with the rest of the couch. I had a single crack of light which I used to look at my watch. Something like an hour passed with me crumpled up between the couch. Eventually, they forgot about me, started playing Wii. Funnily enough, while sitting on the exact couch I was at. Maybe an hour had gone by at this point since I hid myself. A little while longer and then someone mentioned, hey, did Johnny Swanee go home? They agreed that no, I hadn't gone home and that I had been gone since they started hide and seek. They started looking for me. They looked everywhere, except, of course, the couch they were sitting at the whole time beforehand. Another half hour might have passed. No sign of me. Keep in mind, I am writhing in pain from the uncomfortable position I am in. Quite literally crumpled between 2 pieces of furniture on a cold, concrete floor, for well over an hour. Everything is hurting at this point. Once people start talking about leaving, I carefully emerge from my hiding spot without being seen and just sort of reintegrate myself with the group. They notice me and are pretty surprised. They commended my determination and we played more Wii sports. Funny part is I was in high school. Yeah, it felt bad to be forgotten for a little while, but it only made it so much better to be crowned the champion of hide and seek at the age of 16. Edit. Holy cow, I can't believe how much this comment has blown up. When I posted it, it had like 0 upvotes. Thanks for all the awards. My friend's older brother, 22 male, had a gun out. Me, 8 male, and my friend, 8 male, were playing Nintendo. The 22 male thought it would be funny to scare us, so he pointed the gun at us. We screamed and said to stop. He laughed and said it wasn't loaded, pointed it at my friend and pulled the trigger, shot him in the face from point blank range and killed him. I have nightmares still about it. I'm now 40. Holy shit. Did he go to prison? Sadly, yes, he went to prison for manslaughter. I believe 22 years was his sentence. I never got to talk to his mom after she moved away. Shortly after the funeral, she essentially lost both of her boys and family in a matter of minutes. It's just a tragic situation, and being older and a dad now of teenagers, I can fathom this situation and how I would handle it. It is incredibly heartbreaking. Friends decided to set up a mock game of Survivor, based on the reality show, which turned out to be an excuse to vote out the friend nobody likes first. Guess who was the friend nobody liked? It was my birthday party. I was around 10. I invited all my friends, about 4 of them. A couple hours into the sleepover, I found out the hard way that none of them liked me, and they had just came to my party to hang out with each other when they kept excluding me from everything, and they finally told me. I spent the whole night crying in my room, but at least they all had to sleep in the floor without blankets or pillows because they didn't know where to find them. I'm pretty pale. I sat up during a sleepover with a bunch of girls and made one of them scream because she saw me in a mirror and thought I was a ghost. Someone tried to glue my eyes shut. Well, one sleepover one of my friends figured out jacking off and had 0 shame. Definitely jacked off in front of like 5 of us in high school. I went to stay over with my buddy at one of his friend's houses, and it turned out that it wasn't really his friend, it was some dude from Xbox Live that lived in the same town but was for sure older. Had to have been in his 20s when we were 16. Smoked some kind of seed mix that he claimed had some kind of hallucinogenic property. I believe he called it Yopo. Anyways, honestly not my worst night, but my mom would have fucking died if she knew what I was up to, lol. In a couple from soccer practice with a teammate classmate with whom I shared a lot of mutual friends. Her mom casually mentioned her upcoming birthday party. The girl angrily shouted at her mom, and in front of other girls in the car, "Thanks for bringing it up, mom. Now I have to invite Ambron. I'm young, so when I got the invite, my mom makes me go." I don't remember too much about the party, except for when someone decided all us girls were going to relocate our sleeping bags from the basement to the upstairs living room to watch a movie. The birthday girl went down to grab everyone's sleeping bags. When she brought them all up and everyone was snuggled in, mine wasn't there. I went downstairs into the basement, and she had purposely left only mine down there. I went over to a friend's house. She lives with her grandparents. Suddenly she refused to let me out of the room. She wouldn't let me go downstairs. She kept making excuses and wouldn't let me exit at all. I got creeped out and almost called my mom, but she begged me not to go. Eventually we sorta slept. She had the TV on all night so I couldn't sleep well. Years later it was discovered her grandfather was molesting her. And it turned out that night she noticed he was eyeing us both, so that was the explanation for how the night went down. Went to a girl's sleepover where there were 3 of us. The girl's dad put an audio recorder under the teddies on top of her cupboard when he came in to hand them out. Would have been about 8 years old. We were talking about crushes at school and such. Next day he played the recording out loud to wake us up, laughing and listening closely to what we were talking about, in front of us. They moved away eventually. 14 years later the girl messages me and asks if I remember anything weird happening at that sleepover. I told her what I remembered and it turned out she was being sexually abused by him. I went to school one day in 2nd grade and my best friend wasn't there. I thought she was homesick, but a whole week went by and she never came back. Nobody said anything. Another kid was gone, but he was in a different class and I didn't notice. I didn't find out until high school that my best friend was being molested by the other kid's dad while they were babysitting her. My friend's family moved away in the middle of the night. The other kid's mom grabbed him and went to live with her parents. I never saw them again. I often wonder how my friend is. My mom knew the whole story, but didn't tell me until she thought I could understand. My friend's mom called her after they left to warn her. Luckily I never went to that kid's house. I had a sleepover birthday party when I turned 9. It was a huge deal for me. I was so excited and prepped for it for ages. Around 7 other girls came over and we had candy and a treasure hunt and all the fun things you do when you're young. An old friend of my dad's was staying at our house that night and brought me a big box of chocolates as a birthday gift. We ate a few and then started playing games outside, leaving the open box unattended in the dining room. My 2 large dogs ate the entire box. By the time this was discovered, my dad and his friend had left to grab a beer together, leaving my mom alone with 8 little girls and a toddler and 2 extremely ill dogs. She couldn't load us all in the car to take the dogs to the emergency vet, so I had to help her pour hydrogen peroxide down their throats to make them puke. The rest of the night was punctuated by the sounds of the dogs throwing up in the backyard. Several girls asked to call their parents and go home. As a last note, our Newfie, the most stubborn, stupid, and wonderful dog we ever owned, never puked once and was completely fine. The Malamute, who we assume was the ringleader, paid heavily for her crimes. She was also fine in the end and lived to 16. Had my first ever sleepover with my best friend in the 1st grade. Things at night were awesome. When I woke up the next morning everyone at his house was super distant, and they called my mom to get rid of me ASAP. His father had an aneurysm that night and passed away. After everything settled he and his mom moved away and I never saw them again. I went on a business trip once and had to share a room with a guy I barely knew. His mother had a heart attack and died and he got the call around 1 AM. It was very awkward and very sad. Early 1990s, when I was a kid, I slept over at a buddy's house for the first time. The next morning we woke up and his mom made us cereal. The milk tasted hella sweet, even for my child taste buds. Something about it all seemed off. Just as my buddy finished his bowl of cereal, his mom came over and turned the bowl on its side to pour the leftover milk from the cereal bowl into a milk carton. The mom then did the same with hers. I felt my face turn red with shame and embarrassment and my stomach turn. Horrified and confused I asked, what is that? What are y'all doing? He turned to me and deadass said, that's our cereal milk. Turned out this sadistic fuck and his entire family poured all of the leftover milk from each bowl of cereal back into a separate milk carton, specifically for cereal. I drank this entire family's backwash. Fucking cereal milk. Used cereal milk. I've posted this same reply on another worst sleepover story thread, upvoted because I feel like more people need to see this shit. My parents sent me to spend the night with my friend. When I got home the next day, my mom told me my dad moved out and they were getting a divorce. I didn't see my dad for 3 years. I was meant to stay the night with a kid just a few doors down from my grandparents. He lived with his grandparents and his grandpa was a facilities manager at an upscale apartment complex, might have even been a country club, and offered to take us swimming for the day. His grandfather drops us off at the main pool and says he'll be back in a while. This pool was Olympic sized and simply had too many people, so we decided to explore and ended up at a smaller pool on the property elsewhere. We were swimming, having a good time and everything was great. That is, until he started a splash fight. We were going back and forth until he started screaming at me. Top of his lungs. Screaming at me. Incoherent screams. He kept coming toward me and I was kind of laughing, kind of scared and had no idea what was going on. He ends up cornering me and tries to push me under the water, still screaming. I wrestle myself free and hit him square in the nose. His nose starts bleeding like Niagara Falls and he started screaming motherfucker repeatedly as loud as his lungs could muster. I got out of the pool and grabbed my things and started back for the front of the complex. The entire time this kid screaming the same word over and over. People are staring. People are trying to calm him down. He's walking after me like the goddamn Terminator. Hands at his sides in fists. This 4'0" kid, covered in blood from his nose, just slowly walking after me, ignoring the entire world around him while screaming motherfucker. I make it back to the front of the place and am desperately trying to get someone to let me use a phone to call home. No one will listen. They're enamored with the screaming kid who, by the way, is still lumbering after me. He's a bloody mess. Nose running like a fountain, mixing with the water from when he got out of the pool. Looks like a walking murder scene out of nowhere. His grandfather appears and snatches him up and disappears with him through a door. What feels like forever passes and I'm still trying to get someone to let me use a phone when his grandfather reappears and asks what happened, then tells me he has to take kid home and I can't go with them. They let me use the phone. My parents don't answer. I ended up getting a hold of my aunt who was still working and couldn't come get me for another 2 hours. The office wouldn't let me stay inside, so I was outside in the parking lot standing around waiting for her to show, still having no idea WTF happened. Aunt shows up and off we go. Get home. Get my ass chewed for being 35 minutes away from home. I had no idea how long the car ride was at the time. A few days later my mom went to talk to kid's grandfather. She comes back to tell me we can't hang out anymore and she tells me he needs medication for keep him calm and they missed his dose that day and it wasn't my fault. Never saw him again.